everybody, my name is Christian Aldo and welcome to the Plastic General. In this episode, we're going to the land of the rising sun in 1945, and unfortunately for the Japanese, the war isn't going that well for them, but they have a new plan and they've put together a kamikaze group of flyers or something. I don't know anything about it, but as a volunteer observer, I guess we're gonna find out what I volunteered for. Kamikazes! Sounds cool. Let's go to war. Fire! And before we get this episode started, I want to give a shout out to Revell. Revell is a company out of Russia, and they come out with some really fantastic sets. Now, this set is already phased out, and this is why I'm bringing it to your attention. It's a set of 6 poses of Waffen SS figures, and the thing about Revell is they love to make releases, and they make them in short runs and short production numbers, and then that's it. Then they're phased out. So you can get their stuff on eBay, and it's well worth it. Amazingly well sculpted, and it's my favorite new company. Along with their brother company, Hasegawa, and they also come out with absolutely fantastically sculpted figures, really cool subjects, but the catch is really short production runs. So they may only come out with 50 sets, and that's it. It's phased out. So when you see sets by Revell or Hasegawa on eBay, buy them right away because they're going to be gone before you know it. And this is a set of German mountain troops. So I'm here in mainland Japan, and I'm here with a detachment of kamikaze fighter pilots. Now, kamikaze means divine wind in Japanese. You know, like they consider themselves basically they're sacrificial pilots. They're going to sacrifice their lives at the request of Emperor Hirohito of Japan. And I'm not doing it. I'm just an observer. I'm just going along. Oh, but you know the kamikazes, they wore this band around their head also, showing their devotion for what they were going to do. And I think the names of their relatives and ancestors are written on the band on their heads. So the first set of figures that we're going to look at today is actually not even really a set of real figures. They're figures that I kind of customized, but you can do this too by doing the same thing that I do. Basically, I made these Japanese 132 scale Japanese ground crew, you know, the crews that work on airplanes, and they were made from something that's out there called Airfix multi-pose sets. So I made them from a combination of different multi-pose sets and just painted them up differently. And so we have a Japanese ground crew guy here just doing. He's just working on something. And then I have a guy here that I made up, and of course they all wore whites. And I made like tool stuff on the base, and he's holding a big wrench. So there's two poses of those guys right there. For the third pose, I got really creative here. I put together a figure kneeling, because you get many different body parts, so you can put them in any pose you want. And so I have this guy he's welding. So he could be fixing on an airplane or doing something with it. He's got the little tank there. Acetylene tank. This figure, I'm bullshitting. I have a guy here fueling up an aircraft. And there's a fuel drum. I just took like a little rubber cable that was used for a tank or something, and that would be the hose. And these were three random figures. These guys are just kind of just doing, you know? They're kind of just doing stuff. And then also, I kind of scratch built a little trolley with some Japanese bombs, some extra bombs that came with a Japanese airplane kit. So I'll tell you what, let's see how I can put these guys into an action scene. Okay, so you got your Zero, and let's say this guy, he's down here and he's welding the landing gear. I get last minute fix up. And then over here you got this guy fueling the airplane. I don't know where the fuel thing would be. I think it would probably be in the wing, but I'm just gonna bullshit. And you got a couple nerds here. You got some bombs. Look over here. You got some bombs. This kid loading up a couple bombs, and so you got maybe these guys are pushing the plane. You got a couple guys pushing the plane. You got a guy. He's getting ready to pick up the bombs. Maybe he's gonna start loading the bombs. Then you have another guy who's been late. He was eating some sushi and he's running. He's a little late. And then you have a guy up here. Actually, maybe this guy would be like helping the pilot get into his this thing here. And then this guy with the wrench is just sort of like he's just adjusting the fins or something. Anyway, I mean, in a well thought out scenario, this is really needed. 132 scale ground crews for Japanese aircraft, whether it be aboard like on an aircraft carrier or land-based aircraft. Japanese ground crews in 132 scale. ICM, this is a direct message to you. Give us some ground crews. That was fun. I'd like to introduce the 21st Century Toys Japanese Zero and 132 scale. This particular designation is the A6M3. Now, 21st Century Toys released it in two different versions. The A6M2, which was the earlier version, and then for the M3, what they did is they changed the cowling and a couple other small things. And so let's take a closer look at this particular toy, which is, they're still readily available on eBay. And it's great. Oh, it also comes with a pilot figure. And he pops in and out quite easily. And, just for scale, there's an idea of how big the figure is. I mean, how big the airplane is. And, of course, it has a nice retractable landing gear. I'm not going to put it away properly, but... So there it is. The Japanese Zero. The infamous Zero. By 21st Century Toys. Okay, so the next Zero we're going to cover... this is a 132 scale kit that was released by Revell, and this thing's been out for 45 years. This thing is old, but they're available forever. They made millions of them. Millions? Let's say 100,000 of them, of this particular kit. It's by Revell, and it's actually one of the later versions of the Zero. And this particular designation is the A6M5. So it's the 5th generation as opposed to the other one I showed you was the M3. And you can see, look, my decal had fell off over the years. But it was the first decent plane that I painted. And there it is. And a pilot figure fits in nicely into the cockpit. And it's a good one. You get this thing for cheap. So it's by Revell, and it's 132 scale if you want to build up your army or your fleet of Japanese Zeros. So this next 132 scale Japanese plane is, this time, the Zeros, they were carrier based naval planes, but this one is the Army Air Force. This was the KI-43, and the code name for it was Oscar. Now let me explain something about Japanese planes. The reason why a lot of them are called Frank or George or Tony or Oscar is because I guess for American Navy or people's spotters of Japanese planes, it was easier for them to give them really easy code names to pronounce or remember. So so when they saw that, they go, oh, that's an Oscar, or there's a Tony, or there's a Raiden Jack. But this one is the Oscar, and it's a land-borne plane, you know, it's a very tiny little plane too. Very agile, very hard to hit. One of the problems with it, it did the guns. Here's a pilot in comparison. It's really small. The guns, it was kind of, the weaponry was a little bit light, so it was kind of phased out, which is going to be my next point. The planes that I've been showing you so far, the Japanese, for kamikazes, they chose to use planes by 1945 that were slightly being phased out by the more modern and more capable planes like the Tojo or the Frank or the George. So that's why the Oscar was a great candidate for a kamikaze mission. This is an Oscar by Hasegawa in 132 scale. Fantastic model. You die for Japan and the Emperor Hirohito. You shall fall like the lotus blossom, and you shall live forever in the skies of Japan. Now, if you want some 132 scale Japanese pilots, there's lots of odds and ends and little shards of little pockets of Japanese 132 scale pilots, and here are some right now. We have a couple, 3 different seated pilots. Now, these all came with aircraft by Hasegawa. They're 3 different seated pilots. You have this one, obviously he would be in a later type of Japanese plane because he has the oxygen mask, and same with this guy, and actually same with all 3 of them. So they're very, very well sculpted, really accurate. Nice pilots. These 2 pilots came with the Tamiya Zero, and they gave you a standing pilot and a seated one. Now I think the naval pilots, they're the ones that have the life vest underneath their harness. The same type of real, 100% real harness that I have here. This was a real harness that cost me thousands of dollars, paid for by your pledges to the show. Helps pay for these rare harnesses. Look at that harness. This was a pilot that came with a set of Axis pilots by ICM. They came with a Luftwaffe and an Italian pilot, and the third one that came in the set was the Japanese pilot. There you go. Now, here are 2 famous pilots and they came out with 7 different World War II pilots. And I should have did I forget the names of these. These are actual Japanese aces, but the dummy that the plastic general can be sometimes, I forget the names of those pilots. But the name of the company is Fine Molds, and they came out with 7 pilots. One of them is an Army pilot, and the other one is a Naval pilot. Finally, these 2 pilot figures, they're just from small companies that just make pilots out of 132 scale pilots out of resin. And if you go to hobby shops, you can just randomly see them. They're made of resin. They're not going to break or anything. They come in like, let's say 2 parts or something, or 3 parts. Head, torso, and legs. And they're just great figures. So there's my personal collection of 132 scale Japanese pilots by various companies. And you need someone to fly your planes. Wow! What's that? Okay, this little Stinger here is a very, very special aircraft. This was actually a purpose-made suicide craft by the Japanese. Basically, it's a flying warhead. It's called the MX-47. Now, that's crazy. Even sounds cool. And basically, the pilot would go in there, and he gets in. Oh, the name for the craft was called the Oka, and the Oka was a lotus flower. And the whole thing about the lotus flowers, they fall at the height of their ripeness and die. And so this craft, let me give you a little tour around this craft. The whole front of it, I think that's a little button on the tip there. This whole front is a warhead. So basically, the guy's flying in a goddamn missile. And on the back, there's rockets. So this thing, I think, could probably fly about 800 miles an hour at its target. Now, there were very few controls. There was just like the steering and a couple other things. There was no radio. There was no nothing, because you are going to be incinerated the minute you hit that, if you're lucky enough to hit your target, which is very difficult, by the way. But how these things were born was a Japanese Betty bomber would carry one and attach it to the bottom, and then when it was released, it would be released, and then would go and then fly toward its target and hit the target and blow it to kingdom come. And if the pilot was lucky. If not, he would just crash into the water. Then he'd be wasting his life. Anyway, so this is the Oka. Oh, by the way, this is a vacuform kit, and it was made by Combat Models. And Jeff from Combat Models, I bought it off of him. And this is a shout out to Jeff, who created all of those vacuform model kits. And it turned out quite nice. It's very solid, and it's got the little cockpit thing. And this pilot here is made by ICM. It's a Japanese seated pilot. And he's great. He comes in and out nicely. There he is. Banzai!
Yes. You very, very, very brave.
Now for this item. This is the latest trend in 1/35th scale naval sets. Obviously, no one is crazy enough, except for the Plastic General, to come out with a 1/35th or 1/32 scale battleship, but they sure as hell are coming out with battleship components, like isolated components, like turrets from all kinds of stuff, like the Bismarck or the Yamato. This particular turret, which is called the Mark 5-inch 38 twin gun mount. So these were commonly, for the last 2 years of the war, these were commonly put on every destroyer or battleship, and lots of them too. So I guess these are 5-inch guns, and whatever the 38, maybe they were made in 1938 or designed, whatever. I don't know. I'm making that up. Don't take me, don't mark that down. So it's kind of a small turret. So remember, guys, here's the little scale lesson. This is a 1/32 scale figure. This is a 1/35th scale figure. So guess what? Throw this midget out. There's not much of a difference anyways. You can use this with your 1/32 scale stuff. And so you have the elevating guns. There's two of them, two 5-inch elevating guns. Up here is the rangefinder. And back here is the little naval door. And so, you know, naval doors are small anyways, especially for something like this. You open it up, you bend down and you crawl into it, because that's how naval doors are anyway. So, and this is created by Takom. It's 1/35th scale, which is very compatible with your 1/32. And there you have it. The Takom Mark V 38 twin gun mount. Fire! Kamikaze attack! Sound the alarm! Sound the alarm! I'm back. It looks like I survived the Oka crash. I didn't mean it to hit the ship, but it looks like I got out okay. Anyways, it looks like that's all for today. Besides, I'm in too much pain to continue. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, because we're gonna hit 1,000 subscribers this month. And it's on time for a 1-year anniversary. And this episode was also brought to you by Rick's World of Toys, quality conversions by Britain's Detail out of England. And remember, if you want to support the show, we'll have the billboard that shows our PayPal. We can always use that cash, because now I'm going to have to pay for some medical bills and a new battleship. My name is Christian Aldo. I'm the Plastic General. And long live 132. Ow! Long live 132 World War II. See you next time.